Hello, good afternoon. We can see people are joining. Welcome to the last open call webinar of BlueActionBANOS. Let's give everyone maybe 2 minutes more to join. And yeah, we'll start very, very soon. Okay. Okay. It's already 2:02, and I can see that the number of participants has stopped growing, so I think we can start. So welcome to our fourth technical open call webinar under BlueActionBANOS. My name is Maria Karpilowska. I'm Senior Project Manager at FundingBox, and FundingBox is the partner in BlueActionBANOS that is dealing with open calls management and the whole evaluation and selection process. So during all the previous webinars, we try to present to you step by step the open call process, how to apply, what the evaluation and selection process looks like. And today we would like to take a dive into the full proposal form, what it consists of, what you should be aware of, what to pay attention to, and those kind of very practical tips to be aware of as the submission deadline comes closer and closer. So we'll first have a look at the overview of the full proposal form. Then I would like to say a few words about each of the evaluation criteria. So the sections in the full proposal form that correspond to the evaluation criteria: relevance, impact, and implementation. Then we'll have a look at the budget. I will also explain what the lump sum mechanism means, because this is the payment mechanism that we will use in BlueActionBANOS support programs. Then I would like to give you some final tips. And this part of the presentation, I'll try to make it short to leave a bit more time for any questions you may have in the second part of our meeting today. Okay, so let's move on to the first point, full proposal form. The full proposal form contains 9 sections. Each of them has like a meaning for us, for the selection process, for the evaluation process. Those 4 sections that you can now see in the blue boxes, in those sections, the information you provide is quite crucial for the admissibility and eligibility check process that we carry out just after the submissions deadline, right? So the information you put there carries importance for this stage of the evaluation and selection process. Then relevance, impact, and implementation are independent evaluation criteria. So whatever you put in those sections of the full proposal form will be a very important information for the evaluators, for independent evaluators. There's 4th section you can see in this red pinkish box. This is ethics self-assessment. This section will also be reviewed by independent evaluators. However, this section will not be scored. This is not a scored criterion. The sections that you saw highlighted in blue boxes in the previous slide are legal information, project information, and declarations of honor and processing of personal data. So this seems very administrative maybe, but the information you put there is quite important for us. So what kind of information do you need to provide? In legal information, it's just very basic type of data, like the name of the entity or entities, the website, the type of entity, whether you are a local authority or regional authority or an SME or an educational organization, etc. We'll ask for the website, country of registration, and so on. Because you know that we have those certain eligibility criteria, and they are connected with the country where you are registered, with the type of entity. So this is the information we need to ask. Then another thing to remember, and quite important here, is the gender equality plan, which is by Horizon Europe project rules right now a requirement for public bodies, universities, and research organizations. So whenever you click for a partner, that this partner is a public body or university and so on, you will need to provide the link to the published gender equality plan. And then there are some statements under this section, and with the statements, you always need to read very clearly the sentence and the answer, because it may be yes or no statement or true or false. We really try to eliminate all double negatives and try to make it easy to understand and simple, but still mistakes happen in statements due to applicants maybe not having enough time or not putting enough attention into reading the statement and the answer. So this is one thing to pay attention to. The second section, project information. This is the section where we will ask about not the country of registration of an entity, but a country of implementation of the planned project activities. Because, as you know, the implementation, the impact of the actions or transition agendas you are proposing must be within BANOS countries, BANOS area, so Baltic and North Sea. Also in this section, we ask about mission ocean objectives, because your projects must be aligned with those objectives and the type of community that will benefit from your planned action or transition agenda. Next, we have a declaration of honor, and under this section, there are lots of statements. They mainly result from the requirements, official requirements of Horizon Europe project, so European Commission requirements. And here, once again, I will say that it's very important to read whether the statement is positive or negative, and look at the answers, because some of those statements require a yes or no answer, and some of them require a true, false answer. All right. And those declarations of honor are like completing this part of the full proposal is quite mechanical. But if you don't pay enough attention to it and make a mistake, it may cause that your proposal is rejected at the admissibility and eligibility stage, right? So that's why I'm highlighting that. And then there are 3 simple statements for the processing of personal data section, right? So this is purely administrative, but still quite important. And let's move on now to the sections which correspond to evaluation criteria. The first of those sections is relevance, and this is the first evaluation criterion. We've already gone through that in one of our previous webinars. Just to remind you, sorry, I need to change the slide. Yes. But just to remind you, each criterion is evaluated on the scale between 0 and 5. And each proposal is evaluated by 2 independent evaluators, right? So the relevance criterion is about mainly ambition and innovation. And let's see how this is defined for the purpose of BlueActionBANOS open calls. So basically, under ambition, we want to know how your project fits and contributes to the BlueActionBANOS project scope, right? We also want to know how it responds to some certain challenges or gaps you can see in your target region or community. So the text you put in this section of the proposal should show the evaluators that you really fit with the project scope, that what you propose is an eligible activity to be funded, that it's connected with Mission Ocean goals, that it's connected with BANOS region, BANOS area, and that you see a problem you are trying to solve within your region or community. Okay, the second sub criterion here is innovation. However, we are not a tech development project, therefore we are not thinking about innovation in usual terms. We are thinking of innovation in BlueActionBANOS as something new or different for the local community in comparison to what has already been done, all right, in comparison to the state of affairs that is there now, right? And how your approach is different, how it stands out in your community or region. So this is how we define innovation in BlueActionBANOS. And then the third sub-criterion here is soundness of the approach and credibility and feasibility of the proposed action. So we want to know how you understand the community where you are planning to implement your project, whether you have knowledge of, local requirements, whether you have any experience, and how you are planning to involve local actors. Of course, you can see already in this slide that those criteria are slightly differently formulated for CLAs and TAs, but the general idea of those three sub-criteria is quite similar. Okay, and what would be the tip about relevance? The tip here would be to go to Annex 1 in the terms and conditions and go through the list of activities that qualify for financial support and provide a description of your proposed action that actually fits one of the bullet points in this annex, because the evaluator then will read what you have written under this criterion, and they will have to connect your proposal to the scope, right, of the project. So if the activities you are proposing are not in this list, if you cannot connect the description with the activities in the list, it means that what you are proposing is not eligible for funding. Okay, so this is very, very important to be able to describe your project the way that is connected to the list of activities eligible for financial support, right? So this is what we recommend in case of this criterion. Let's move on to the next evaluation criterion, which is impact. In this criterion, you are going to describe how your project, your planned activities are going to change the local community, your region for the better, of course, what impact they are going to have, how you can measure this impact, how you can measure the impact on the society, local community, what's going to be economic or technological impact for the local community. Again, the phrasing is a bit different for CLAs and TAs because they are different support programs and you'll carry out different activities. However, again, the general idea is very similar. And the tip I can give for accurately describing this criterion, especially in terms of KPIs, is again to go to project website, have a look at the guidelines for applicants. I will show you later on where to find it. And under guidelines for applicants, you'll find a very useful and very detailed description regarding how to describe your KPIs in the proposal. Okay, this document has been prepared by one of our partners who actually deals with the whole project impact and the impact of the funded projects. So they do have the knowledge of what kind of information is expected under this section with KPIs, right? And also under economic technological impact, in both CLAs and TAs, there are questions about how you will continue after the funding for your project ends. What's your idea for the continuation, all right? Okay, and the third evaluation criterion is implementation. This is where we want to know what you are planning to do, with whom, for how much money, and who you will engage a part of the direct project team. Okay, so basically this is the information. I can see some questions appearing in the chat. I will try to answer all of them in the Q&A part and provide you with all the links and show you where to find them. Yes, of course. Okay, so under work plan, we will want to know what your main objectives are, activities you're planning, milestones, who does what and when, in short. Okay, we'll also want to know whether you see any risk factors concerning political, economical, social, legal, or environmental issues, and what assistance you may need from BlueActionBANOS project partners. Whether maybe you will need some, let's say, training within the ecosystem, or networking, or matchmaking with some partners, or something more specific. We may have those capabilities within the consortium, and this is what we may be able to support you with. So we added this because at the beginning of the support program, the funded projects will all go through a more detailed needs assessment, but also this kind of question will help us to realize whether what you need is within the consortium and whether we may actually help you with this. Then a big subsection of this criterion is connected with resources. So first of all, we will want to know how you build your consortium and why you want to cooperate with the partners you want to cooperate. So what's the justification for that? Then resources allocation and cost estimate, and how we are planning to distribute the total cost among the partners. So I will go more into the details of the budget in the next slide. It's just that the budget you are building will be located in this part of the full proposal, so under implementation and resources. Then you'll need to answer some questions about the team. So how the team and the partners are connected to the local or regional community context. So this is what we'll want to know, what the expertise and experience of the team members are. Gender diversity and inclusion. There's a question about this one as well. And we'll ask you to list key team members for working on the project. Okay. And then stakeholder and citizen engagement. So again, how are you planning to work with local stakeholders? How are you planning to engage them? And how are you planning to communicate and share project results once the project ends, and how you are planning to exploit project results? Okay. So relevance, impact, and implementation are the three criteria. And the general tip I would give for those, and the aspect that independent evaluators will look at, is how the scope of the project, so the activities you are planning to do that are connected with the list of eligible activities, how they are tied to the KPIs and how it fits the work plan, and how the work plan translates to cost estimate. So, for example, whether the total budget for your project is proportional to the work you are planning to carry out, and whether the team you are proposing for the task will be able to carry out all those tasks, right? So all those elements within your full proposal should be aligned and should make sense for the evaluator, right? Okay, let's move on to the next slide, and this time a few words about the budget. This is always a very tricky and difficult point. So how to calculate the budget, what you can include, what you cannot include in the budget. We are getting a lot of questions about that. So to put it simply, the budget you are including in the full proposal is the cost estimation. And this is the estimation based on actual costs, your usual accounting practices, your market prices, your internal regulations, and so on and so forth. So the budget is a cost estimate as close as possible to actual costs, but this is a cost estimate, right? Then at the very beginning of the support program, selected projects will work on a more detailed budget, okay? Trying to provide a more detailed cost breakdown. However, at this point, full proposal stage, we only want you to provide us with general costs per cost categories. And those cost categories are personnel costs, purchase costs, including travel, equipment, other goods, works, and services, and overheads. Overheads is a cost category which used in Horizon Europe projects, which is a flat rate of 25% of all direct costs. Okay. And then the total cost for your project is A plus B plus C. So personnel costs plus purchase costs plus overheads, right? In BlueActionBANOS, we are not including subcontracting costs. And we do not ask applicants to provide a specific cost breakdown for overheads, because overheads is a flat rate, and those are general costs of carrying out project activities. Right? And I mentioned that the budget is a cost estimate, the closest you can make to the actual costs, but it's still a cost estimate. And based on this cost estimate, we are going to apply for selected projects the lump sum mechanism to transfer the funds to issue payments later on. Okay, so how does the lump sum mechanism work? We often get from applicants or beneficiaries questions like, will I need to provide receipts? Will I need to report actual costs of the team, show invoices for incurred costs, timesheets for project members, team members involved? Can we expect an audit from the commission, and so on and so forth? So all those questions, the answer to all those questions is no, because we are applying the lump sum mechanism. Under this methodology, we are not focusing on the financial management of the project. We are just focusing on the project content. But to be able to do that, we need to have a pretty well done and detailed cost estimate. Okay, so once we have the cost estimate, this is the end of your work on the budget and cost reporting and so on. Okay, the lump sum works this way, that you provide this cost estimate and then the payments are released upon the completion of project milestones. So we pay against the results. This is the idea, the clue for this lump sum mechanism. Under the lump sum mechanism, what we need to transfer the payments to the projects are technical documents, reports, deliverables, information in the reports, who did what. In terms of, in the case of technical development projects, we will want to see some prototypes and so on and so forth. And at a milestone given, all the required documents must be submitted. Next, they are evaluated and payments are validated by the selection committee and transferred to beneficiaries. Okay, we pay against project progress, project results. What we will not need to see are all the financial accounting documents. However, we always encourage beneficiaries to keep them in your records for a couple of years. Why? Because you may need them for your local tax purposes, some local checks and controls. If we are thinking about the audit from the European Commission, you will never be under such a control or check, because the agreement you sign is not with the European Commission. The agreement you sign is with BlueActionBANOS Consortium. And of course, in the sub-grant agreement, you will have some provisions what kind of documents you should keep in your records for how much time and for what reason. The reason is that we may be under the audit or control or check, and then we may need to ask you for some information. But in order to transfer the payments to you during the support program, during your project, we will never ask for any specific financial documents unless we have, a reasonable doubts and need to find out some more information. Okay. Otherwise, we want to see the reports. We want to see that your KPIs have been reached, and then the payment comes through. Okay. So just to summarize some final points, what you should remember about at this full proposal stage. So always the open call documentation, terms and conditions, especially Annex 1, I cannot repeat that enough. Those are very important documents. And your proposed project, the activities of the project should be aligned with one or more of the bullet points you can find in Annex 1 of the open call terms and conditions. If you are a public body, university, or research organization, and you don't have this gender equality plan at the moment, or you have it, but it's written somewhere and distributed internally, please make sure that before the open call deadline, you have it available and published under a public link, a link which an evaluator or any person performing admissibility and eligibility check can click and see that it's there. Because this is a Horizon Europe requirement. We cannot skip that, right? And it is required for public institutions, right? We still have 6 weeks, I think, before the open call deadline. So I'm pretty convinced that if somebody doesn't have it in place, it's still possible within the time frame to have it there. We also recommend that you start working on the draft of the full proposal as soon as you receive the invitation to the full proposal. We are trying to send those invitations twice a week. The next, let's say, round of invitations will be sent tomorrow. So if you have completed your consultation and haven't received an invitation yet, you should receive one tomorrow. And we really recommend that as soon as you receive this link to the full proposal form, you start working on it, just to see what the platform looks like and to see how much information there needs to be. Okay. We also recommend checking KPIs guidelines. Of course, we'll share their link and show you where to find it. Once you have a draft ready, even if it's not the final version, the final perfect version, but let's say all the required fields are completed, we always recommend that you submit it earlier, because you can submit your proposal and then come back to it and edit it. So you can work on the final version in the edition mode while it's already submitted, and you can edit the form till the open call deadline, right? Of course, after each edition, you will need to save the changes, but this is the recommended approach, because it happens that if applicants wait with submission till the last moment, there is some, traffic on the platform, some congestion, or the internet is not there when you need it. It happens, so we never recommend waiting till the last moment with clicking the submit button. In this open call, you have this possibility to submit earlier and then edit the content of the proposal. So the next tip is also making sure that the scope of your project and the KPIs and the work plan and the resources are aligned, and that together they make sense, that the costs are proportional to the activities you are planning, that the team is big enough to be able to carry those activities. That if you have 10 people on the team, the personnel costs must match that number more or less. Of course, there will be differences per country, but it must make sense when you look at it as a whole, right? And the final tip here in this slide, it's always good to think, to put yourself in the shoes of an independent evaluator. The independent evaluator will only see what you put in the proposal. Of course, if you add LinkedIn links of your team members, the evaluator will be able to see this information, but they will only have access to what you have included in the proposal. So, looking at the text you put from that perspective is a very good exercise, just to think, have I provided all the information? Is it clear? Is it well structured? Is there enough information, but is it easy to understand, right? And so on and so forth. So that would be the tips I would like you to remember before the submission. And I think we can move on to questions and answers. I've put here a few topics that are very popular in our help desk email. So multiple submissions. The issue, the idea is that one entity can receive only one grant from BlueActionBANOS, and one entity can participate only in one kind of support program, CLAs or TAs. It cannot participate in both, and it can receive the grant only once. So in practice, it means that that you should focus on one open call, CLAs or TAs. Submitting proposals to both might be counterproductive. Of course, we cannot forbid anyone to do that, but it might be counterproductive. And what do we understand by multiple submissions? So multiple submission is a situation where the same entity submits more than one proposal, or exactly the same consortium submits more than one proposal. And this is not allowed. If you do that, we'll look only at the latest submission, the submission closest to the open call deadline. However, if you are an entity that participates in different projects, applies in the same open call, but as a part of different consortia, different projects, this is allowed. This is also quite risky because you can receive a grant only once. So if you are participating in 3 proposals and those 3 proposals are successful, so they successfully go through admissibility, eligibility, independent evaluation, they are all successful, 3 proposals, you will need to select only one. But what happens with other consortia where you participated? You will either need to agree to participate without the budget, so have no money for your work, or you will need to withdraw. If you withdraw, it creates an issue for other consortia, the ones that you withdraw from, because they had a partner was supposed to do this and that kind of work, but right now this partner is gone, and they either need to bring in someone else or distribute the tasks among other partners. And this is a quite difficult situation, and it requires a lot of, activities also on the open call team side and also on the consortium side. So again, we will not prohibit anyone from applying as part of multiple projects, let's say different projects, but we just want you to be aware that that there are some risks connected with that, okay? And the decision is yours. Then, yeah, I've covered withdrawal of a party from a project. Yes, it may create a lot of issues, because if you want to introduce a different partner, this partner will have to go through the eligibility check, and it will need to be confirmed that this party can take over the activities of the withdrawing party like one-to-one. Okay, so it is a process. It may cause some delays and so on and so forth. We also had some questions about a joint responsibility of partners for project implementation, or what can you do if you have a partner that is not delivering what they were supposed to deliver. So here, what we can recommend is that you have consortia have their own internal arrangements, like a consortium agreement. BlueActionBANOS will not interfere with that. We'll only ask you to sign the sub-grant agreement with the Blue Action BANOS Consortium. And like the relations between project partners, funded projects partners, are, belong to the funded project. Okay, and where should I look? I should look at the questions in the chat, I suppose, right?
Yes, actually, let's start. Would you like me to read you some of them out loud? Would that be easier? I would advise to start from the Q&A box.
Okay, that would be very helpful, Sylvia,
Nice.
if you could read them, okay?
Of course. Then I'll start from a question from Rolandio, who is basically asking, I have an initial question regarding the feasibility and implementation. To what extent are projects expected to demonstrate long-term financial self-sustainability versus operational feasibility within the funded period?
Okay, for transition agendas, I would say this is much more important than for community-led actions, because transition agendas are projects which make plans. So it's quite important for the transition agenda proposals to be able to prove that you also have an idea how to implement this plan in the future, because your task within the project will be to create a multi-year plan. Right. In terms of CLAs, operational capacities will be quite important, because with CLAs, the implementation happens, with Blue Action BANOS, right? I hope it answers the question.
Yes, nice. And this person also has a second question regarding the lump sum mechanism. In a milestone-based lump sum system, how should we model cash flow timing when payments depend on deliverable but costs are continuous?
Yeah, unfortunately, this is something you need to take into account and somehow model this cash flow internally with your partners, because there is no advance payment, and we are not able to pay before the results of a stage given are evaluated, validated, and approved. So this is something we're saying very openly and honestly from the very beginning, that this is how we operate. Like let's say, calendar timing of payments are included in the terms and conditions for each of the open calls.
Yes, and I also want to make a clarification. So there are some questions that are quite long, extensive, and detailed. We will skip those for the benefit of brevity. So please, if you don't get your answer asked here, always feel free to use the Blue Action BANOS email address that was also mentioned before. But in the meantime, we also have a question from Pernil. Is it possible to attach I'm guessing it means files, tables, recommendations to the application? And
No,
someone else had also asked if it's mandatory to also link profiles, as you mentioned in their applications.
I don't think it's mandatory. Let me have a look at the full proposal form. Just give me a second.
Yes.
Okay, we ask for team members' name, surname. Yes, we ask for a LinkedIn or alternative profile, and it is like a required field. So yes, LinkedIn or alternative.
Nice, perfect. And somebody else, is there are limitations on how much of the budget can be used for consultations or consultants? As well as there are some more questions that maybe I can bridge in on subcontracting. Let me fish another one that I'd seen, which was about, there are so many questions. Yeah, let's keep it to this one then for now. Apologies.
Sorry, a question about?
So the question was then on are there limitations on how much of the budget can be used for consultants?
No, if we treat consultants as like the purchase of the services, no. The limitation is that necessary and directly for your project implementation? And is it directly connected with the goals of your project? This is the question, the only question.
Perfect. Clear. Then Elvira asking, what is the technical assistance mechanism mentioned in one of the questions of the application form? Are there any documents to consult or regulations to follow?
Yeah, thank you for the question. At the moment, we don't have any documents. We just want the applicants to let us know what kind of needs you think you may have during the implementation of the project. BlueActionBANOS partners are very well established in the network of blue economy, aquaculture. So this is the kind of question: will you need more, let's say, support with economical topics, or community leadership, or maybe technical assistance and knowledge of someone who is well rounded in the topics, of aquaculture and so on and so forth, right?
Nice. And somebody's asking, Florina Lachman, we are a foundation and a local deployment support organizations. Are we considered a public body?
Uh, sorry, Sylvia, can you read once again the
Yeah, they
description?
are a foundation and a local deployment support organization, and whether they're considered a public body.
I cannot answer that question. Maybe the answer is in your statutes. It's hard for me to answer that without, getting more information, okay?
Perfect. So I will also still close this. Then we had a question about consultations. There is another consultation regarding the no, this one we answered, sorry. Elvira asks again, what if you're working with grassroots groups that don't have a structure to hold budget, but the members are freelancers who you would like to remunerate fairly for workshops? Is this considered still subcontracting? So freelancers that you would like to use for workshops?
I think you can put that under the purchase of services,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Perfect. Then Florie is asking whether there is a budget limit and time limit for lump sum funding, but I think that it's also quite clear.
Mhm. Well,
Um, yeah,
budget limit, we have the maximum funding that one CLA, one community-led action can receive, and that one transition agenda can receive. So the limit for community-led actions is 2 million. Okay, this is the maximum grant you can receive. And the limit for transition agendas is 100,000 euros. And plus, on top of that, we have limits that one entity within the project can receive. And you can find all this information in the terms and conditions, right?
perfect. And then we have another also still question from the same person. Are forms required when reporting personnel costs? Should costs be reported based on hours worked or on each person percentage of employment?
Yeah, thank you. This is exactly something we will not require
Okay.
for the payment process and validation. Yes.
Perfect. I see that more questions are coming in the chat. I'm starting from the Q&A format because it's just the easiest for us to kind of go through. So please, if you haven't questions, please prioritize this channel. Elvira also asks, if my university only asks for 20% overhead, do we take 20% overhead or should we always charge 25% overhead?
It should be always 25% because this is the flat rate used, and also in our full proposal form, this 25% is calculated automatically from the other costs you will enter in the form.
Perfect. We have a sub question then to this from Santa, which is not fully related. How will selected projects how will projects be selected for funding when there's similarly rated applications given the funding available under CLAs?
Okay, so first of all, we will look at the independent evaluation results, the scoring. Then also in the terms and conditions, there's a section under evaluation which says how we will solve ties, because it may happen that two proposals will have the same scoring, and then there are different levels of how we will solve it. So first we will look at this, then we will look at this, and so on and so forth. All right. So you can check it in the terms and conditions.
Perfect. Then there is a second question regarding the lump sum mechanism. In a milestone-based lump sum system, how should we model cash? I apologize. This one I think was already answered. Bjorn asked, I read that the payment of the final 15% of the project costs will only be made once the BAB project itself has been completed.
Yes.
Yeah, a pre-financing of such time span is really difficult, especially for small community stakeholders. Is there a way that we can, within our consortium, mitigate this, or can BlueActionBANOS do that?
Yes, I can understand, and sorry, I didn't mention that earlier, but we also want to be very transparent about this. So the situation is that the whole project, Blue Action Banos project, during the project period, receives 85% of the total costs for the whole project. So we don't have this 15% during the project to pay. We only receive that after the whole Blue Action Banos project ends. Therefore, if we don't apply this delay payment mechanism, at some point we run out of money to pay to the beneficiaries. So this delay payment mechanism is something that is approved by the European Commission. European Commission understands that these are the conditions. This is something we can use to mitigate the risk of not having enough funds to pay to beneficiaries, and this is what we would like to avoid. And for this reason, we have this delayed payment mechanism. And again, this is something to consider when you are building your cash flow. And unfortunately, we have no way of mitigating that.
Perfect. Aino is asking whether the list of activities in Annex 1, Terms and Condition, is exhaustive, or whether any other types of activities can be included in the similar nature that the ones mentioned.
The list is exhaustive. That's why I really recommend looking at the list and thinking how you can, what kind of wording you can provide for your project that will fit one of those activities, right? Because any activities which are not in the list will not be eligible for funding, and this is quite important to be aware of that.
Perfect. Bjorn is asking, is the grant subject to the de minimis rule?
Yes, in case of SMEs, I think commercial companies, if I remember correctly. And this is also for if you are an applicant who is an SME, we will ask you in the full proposal to kind of mark a statement that I'm sorry, that you are not in conflict with state aid rules. However, what those state aid rules are, it's on the applicant to check. Okay.
Okay, perfect. We have another question from Rolando related to the funding period and the evaluation criteria. If a system is not financially self-sustaining after the funding period, but delivers strong impact during the project, how is this evaluated? Or did I already ask this one?
No, you haven't. I think in terms of CLAs, the idea is to provide impact during the project, but still it would be nice if you can think and reflect this thinking in the full proposal, how you can maybe there are local stakeholders you will be engaging during the project. Maybe you are planning to make some partnerships, and all these kind of ideas are worth putting in the proposal, right?
Yes, definitely. Then we have a question from Malina. In the proposal form, we are asked to confirm that a locally based company is not in conflict with state aid rules that you
Yes.
also just talked about. Can you say a
Yes.
little bit more about this and give context?
It's hard for me to give the context because we are not aware of the state aid rules in each of the BANOS countries. This also comes from the EC requirements. So this is how the project was written. That's why we ask you to sign this statement. And what we recommend is contacting your local authorities, consulting your accountancy offices, departments, and local agencies to confirm that in the case you are granted funding, you will not be in conflict with those state aid rules.
Perfect. Clear. Christine asked, does an NGO whose governing body consists of municipalities, a public body, and is funded by them need the GEP?
So the NGO's owner is a public body, right?
Yeah.
If I understand correctly.
Whose governing
Yeah,
body, consists of
I
municipalities.
I think it would be safe to provide one. Okay,
Okay.
because it also depends on what you will put in the full proposal form. Because if for this NGO, in the full proposal form, you will mark that we are a public body, you will have to provide this link. If you will leave the status, the type of the applicant as NGO, you will not have this field to complete. All right. So so you can check it in the full proposal form how it works, and then
Excellent. So I just want to say that we only have 2 minutes, and unfortunately, we do have to end at 3 p.m. sharp. So we'll do our best to address the other questions are left in the Q&A section. For all of the other ones that are in the chat, please always feel free to send emails, as we mentioned, to the contacts that we stated before. So Annette is asking, is a formalized network consisting of several institutions and companies eligible as a partner and as a coordinator of a CLA?
if it is formalized and is a legal entity, then yes.
Perfect.
If the network is a legal entity, then yes.
Perfect. I will read. I think actually, I don't know if we're going to have time to read one last question. I think that you have 2 more slides, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
So yes, thank you, Sylvia. So one thing, I've added the link to the KPIs description to the chat. So please have a look. You can find all those documents on our project website, where you go into the sections for different projects and you go down, there is like a blue field, how to apply. Then all the documents, all the open call documents are there. You will find them there. Okay. If you have any questions, write to us at BAP Help Desk. I'm also typing that in the chat. And here in the slides, you can see a QR code to join BlueActionBANOS community on Blue Biomatch platform. So if you are still looking for a partner or want to be the member of this community and ecosystem, we encourage to register to Blue Biomatch. And yeah, that is all for today. Thank you very much. Those who haven't received invitations should receive them today. And if you have any questions, please write to help desk. We try to answer within 3 days. We try to do our best. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, everybody. Apologies for not getting to every question, but we'll do our best. Thank you so much.
Thank you.